Hello and welcome to this complimentary two-day event. Thank you to everyone who made this event happen, and I would like to welcome you all. My name is Aoife Gaffney. I'm a certified money coach. I am Divorce Coaching Academy alumni. I run a business called Prudence Moneypenny Coaching, and along with being an accredited coach, I'm also a licensed hypnotherapist and EFT practitioner, and I introduce some of those techniques into my coaching practice. So I work a lot with the practical side of things, but I also work with the energy of things. I work predominantly with women, and I work with couples who are either looking to bring their finances together or looking to separate their finances. And I work with individuals who are heading into separation or divorce, and I work with them to help them separate their finances. I do need to make it clear that I am not a tax advisor, and I'm not an accountant, and I also cannot give you legal advice. What I do is give you tools and techniques so that you can empower yourself to take charge of your own money stuff, and I can also help you unravel what you have raveled. So first, let us look at divorce. So divorce can still be a triggering word. In Ireland, divorce is in place for about the last 25 years, certainly within my lifetime. And there are a lot of myths around divorce, that it's an automatic 50% of everything, that women are often perceived as the greedy villains, and men are often perceived as being involved in skullduggery, and that's not always the case. And so many separations and divorces are done very promptly, efficiently, compassionately. So just because you are heading into a divorce, there's no hard and fast rules about anything. And where possible, I strongly recommend mediation. Always explore your free and very low cost options first. And agreements reached through mediation are far more likely to be adhered to. And mediation can be free. You can hire a mediator, you can pay, but you can also pursue a free route, which is, if you can start out with that, it's always a really good place to start. Now, divorce is a complex area. There are a lot of emotions, and particularly when it comes to the money side of things, it can often represent loss. So there's a lot of emotion around loss, and people will, me included, will spend 20 minutes looking for a €5 note that I have lost, instead of focusing on how much can I earn in 20 minutes? Is there a way that I could earn that money back in less time? But it's interesting that when it comes to loss can be hugely triggering. Divorce in Ireland is up 11% in 2021. The pandemic certainly had a part to play in that. But in the overall statistics, the divorce rate in Ireland is still quite low compared to other countries. And when it comes to what are perceived as big money divorces, so what would be considered a big money divorce in Ireland is in and around the 3 million mark. And Jeff Bezos and his ex-wife, they currently hold the record for the largest ever divorce settlement of 38 billion. But the principles are the same. It is a division of assets, it is a division of two people, and it's the dissolution of a legal agreement. And with every dissolution, every legal agreement, there's no one size fits all. And that's why things can get complex and costs can rack up quite quickly, because there's, toing and froing and stresses and a lot of emotional triggers. So the role of a coach really is to support you through this process predominantly support you emotionally, and to be there and help keep you grounded and help keep you focused. It happens. Divorce happens. People come together, and sometimes things work and sometimes things don't work. But it's not automatic that women stay in the family home. It's not automatic that children stay with a female partner. These things are not automatic. Everything really does need to be looked at and, where possible, agreed with the two parties involved. Divorce in itself is not a tragedy, it's a process. But staying in an unhappy marriage, an unhappy relationship, an unhappy anything, whether it's a job or whatever, that itself is a tragedy. I do speak from experience. I have been divorced. I have been married, and I've also been left in debt quite substantially twice as the result of breakdown of relationships. So I have learned how not to do things. And one of the ways that I found I allowed myself to be quite substantially in debt was because I automatically gave the other person all of the financial responsibility. And I didn't have visibility of our financial transactions. And it was only when we went into mediation and we each had to produce an affidavit of means and we had to produce financial documents that I realized how massively in debt we were. Now, I was very young at this stage and I had no idea how to do any of that. And divorce coaching and even divorce wasn't even around. Divorce wasn't legal, actually, at the time that I got my separation. So that gives you an idea of how long ago it was. In most cases, there are three predominant pillars. There is property, maintenance, and pensions. Now, there can be lots of other things. There can be other assets. There can be inheritances, impending inheritances, workplace benefits. There can be lots of other things. But in most cases, these are the three main pillars. The property, again, in most cases, is the family home. Occasionally, there are multiple homes, or there can be complexities around the family home in that the home can have been bought by somebody previously and then the other party moved in at a later date, or one person might have contributed more. So the family home, again, it's not a straightforward 50-50 split. So everything does need to be looked at. So here are a couple of options that you could potentially explore when it comes to the family home. Zsa Zsa Gabor was apparently said that she was a marvelous housekeeper. Every time she left a man or she got a divorce, she kept his house. So that is not always the case, and it's not an automatic entitlement. When I left my husband, I actually left the family home. That was an unusual thing to do. I did that by choice. It was my choice to do. And I did that for lots of reasons. First of all, I didn't actually really like the house. I didn't really like where it was. And the property itself held a lot of unhappy memories for me. So it was my choice to leave the house. One of the options you can explore is the property is put up for sale. So it can go for sale on the open market. And this is a kind of a rough rule of thumb, but the property goes for sale on the open market. Whatever owings are owed, like a mortgage, or there might be a second mortgage on the property, are paid off. And any proceeds are split 50-50. And each party then continues on their own way. The property can be purchased, so one person can buy the other person out. A sort of similar calculation exists. But for reasons, maybe there might be children involved. The house might be a house that somebody would like to stay in. The property can have emotional attachments, like it might have been in a family for generations. Or you also might be in negative equity. So in those cases, there are other options. What I chose to do in my own situation 30 odd years ago, was I was actually bought out of the family home. And it's not a straightforward a case of, well, I'll just have my name taken off the mortgage. Anything that is in joint names, any liability in joint names, each party are responsible for 100% of the payment. So if you have a joint mortgage and one person stops paying, well, the other person is 100% responsible for those payments. The bank don't really care, they just want their money. So even if you have only been paying 50%, you are still liable for the full 100%. So if you have joint liabilities, it's really important that you have full visibility of what's owing, and if payments are being missed, that you address those straight away. So if selling the property either to the other person or selling it on the open market is not an option, another option that can work is called co-nesting. This can work quite well if the couple are on reasonable terms, reasonably amicable terms, and there are children involved. So what happens is the children stay in the family home and then the parents come in and out. So each parent would spend their days or their time with the children in the family home, and when they're not there, they then have to make alternative arrangements for their accommodation. So they could stay with a family member, they might stay with a friend, they might be traveling. So it has its benefits in that the children can stay in the family home, and it also has the benefits in that you can, maybe stay with a family member or stay with somebody else where it might not be suitable for children to go. So it means you can potentially reduce the space that you might need to rent. It can give you a little bit of fluidity and flexibility. So it is an option. It does have its own pros and cons. Like most things, it is an option to explore. Pensions. I'm not a pension expert, and there are different types of pensions and different rules and regulations around pensions. There are defined benefit pensions, defined contribution pensions, private pensions, executive pensions, PRSAs. It is a whole other area. So if there is a substantial pension involved, I do strongly recommend speaking to a pension expert. But generally what happens is a pension adjustment order is put in place. Now, a pension is something that's going to happen in the future. It's going to be drawn down at some point in the future. And a pension adjustment order is not necessarily guaranteeing the other person of a portion of that pension. It may or it may not. In my case, I signed a pension adjustment order, but what I did actually sign was I signed away my rights to any future pension benefits, and I did that willfully and consciously for lots of reasons. So if it's a state pension, so the person has a government role, the lump sum, the tax-free lump sum at the end, and the income is generally guaranteed, and that can be looked at. If it's a private pension, that can be a little more complex because the person contributing could choose to stop the payments or maybe put the funds into something a little more risky to deliberately devalue it. They can do lots and lots of different things, but do think about a pension adjustment order and bear in mind that a pension adjustment order does not necessarily guarantee you a payout. Other things to consider are maintenance. So there can be maintenance for children and there can be maintenance for a spouse depending on the circumstances. It is important to look at, okay, where am I at now? What do my child need? How old are the children? And bear in mind, needs can change. What usually happens is that a maintenance payment is put in place until the youngest child reaches 18, can be as old as 25, or full-time education. So you just have to hope that they don't pursue a postgraduate and then go on and do a PhD. So it is really important, especially if the children are quite young, that there is an end in sight to the maintenance payments for both parties. So let's say I am in receipt of the maintenance and I know that it's going to finish in 4 years, 5 years, I know that I have that length of time to put a plan in place to replace that income when it ceases. Again, I can only speak from my own perspective, but I chose to decline maintenance payments, again, for complex reasons. I made a decision, and a conscious decision, to decline maintenance payments. Where possible, maintenance payments really do need to be made voluntarily. If they're court ordered and you want to change something, it means you have to go to court to make those changes. So that incurs additional costs. Saying if you're putting life cover in place, life cover is generally in place until your youngest child reaches 25. That might be too long when it comes to maintenance. So in general, it is until your youngest child gets to the age of 18 or remains in full-time education. But that is something that really does need to be looked at on a case-by-case basis. Maintenance payments, so the person making the payments, those payments are tax deductible, and the person receiving the income is income, and that income does need to be declared, and that income is liable to income tax. So these are things that are important to bear in mind. So here are a couple of to-dos and to-don'ts. Keep records. So keep records of everything. Know your numbers upside down and inside out. If you have joint assets, joint liabilities, joint anything, joint telephone bills, joint utility bills, make sure you have full visibility of everything. If your name is on a liability, whether it's the phone bill, the gas bill, the mortgage, the car loan, whatever it is, you are 100% liable for 100% of that bill, even if you're only paying half of it, if that makes sense. If once you've made the decision that you are going to separate, then start separating your finances and use free banking. There is absolutely no need to incur any type of bank charges. I'm not a huge fan of joint accounts, even if a relationship is strong and going well. I am not an enormous fan of joint accounts. So I just think they can become quite complicated. So I do recommend separate finances, even when a relationship is quite strong. People will fib. They will. It's human nature. They will. You cannot change it. The only thing you can change is yourself. Be truthful. Be ethical. Don't inflate figures. When you can stand over your figures, they're less likely to be challenged in court. And bear in mind, making a false statement in a court is a criminal offence. So you keep yourself right. If the other person wants to engage in all sorts of skullduggery, then leave them at it. You cannot change them. The only person you can keep right is yourself. There's a couple of ways that money can begin to vanish, and it is something to be mindful of. So money can get hidden in cryptocurrency. But remember, everything leaves a trail. Even cryptocurrency leaves a trail. So there is a digital trail, and that trail can be tracked. So if you really do feel that there are substantial assets and they are being hidden from you, you could potentially explore the use of a forensic accountant. But where possible, always start with the very simple stuff, start with the free stuff, and start with the very basic things. There's a couple of other ways that potentially might trigger some red flags for you. So if bank statements and bills and things have been coming through the letterboxes in physical post and then suddenly they stop, that might trigger some alarm bells for you that the other party has switched over to online banking. Now, there is nothing wrong with doing that, but if it was something that you previously had visibility of and your name was on, it is important that you retain full visibility of any joint assets and any joint liabilities. There's a couple of other ways that money can begin to disappear. The other is paying by debit card and getting cash back. So let's say I go into a shop and I buy something for €80 and I say, can I have €20 cash back? So €100 will appear on the statement and 20 of that went into cash that then can be moved away into an envelope, put somewhere else. So they are simply points to ponder, and anything that might potentially raise some red flags for you. Other things that I strongly recommend that you do: make a new will. If you haven't made a will at all, now is a good time to make one. You can do it for free. You can do it on the back of an envelope. You can buy a will kit. You can buy them online. You can also do it for free. I have a couple of really good resources. If you drop me a line, I can send you the free resources. Consider making a living will and also potentially changing your enduring power of attorney, or certainly putting an enduring power of attorney in place. An enduring power of attorney is if something happens to you and you are not in a position to advocate for yourself. So maybe you are unwell, not in a position to speak, or not in a position to communicate, that somebody else can advocate and do the heavy lifting. Now, an enduring power of attorney, it's a legal document. It will incur legal costs, but there are quite cost-effective ways of doing that. So if your partner or your legal spouse, they generally have that right, and if you don't really want them to have that right, do consider making a living will and putting a legal enduring power of attorney in place and giving that power of attorney to somebody that you trust and trust implicitly. If there are children involved, consider a letter of wishes. A letter of wishes is simply that. It is a letter written by you in your hand, signed and witnessed, doesn't cost anything. And it's saying, in the event of my death, or in the event of, these are the things that I would like to happen. If any of the children have disabilities or additional needs, this is really very important. And especially if it's a child with additional or complex needs, you might like to write a manual. Their medication is this. If they get upset, this is what needs to happen. And these things, they are very important. The letter of wishes has no legal standing. However, it'll give you some reassurance, and it will, if you do go to court, it will give the judge an indication of your intent at the time of the letter. Another point to bear in mind is that prenuptial agreements have no legal standing in the Irish courts at the moment. However, because divorce is on the increase, I'm starting to see a trend of couples remarrying, and they're coming into a relationship with more assets. When I got married first, I had what I was standing up in. That was it. And neither of us had anything coming into the relationship. So there wasn't a whole heap to split. But if you're coming into a relationship and you have assets from built up over time, or perhaps you have an inheritance, you might consider simply putting a letter of wishes in place. And again, if it does go to court, and certainly hope that it won't, it will give the judge an indication of your intention at the time. But bear in mind, it does not have any legal standing. I'd highly recommend that you consider mediation. Mediation can be free. You can also hire a mediator, but where possible, don't pay for something if you don't have to. And agreements reached through mediation are far more likely to stay in force, because a lot of the emotional triggers have been removed, and it's not somebody imposing their will upon you. It's not a judge making a ruling. You reach this agreement with the assistance of a third party. Review all of your joint insurances, and there can be a couple of sneaky things that you actually might forget about. So you might have joint travel insurance, or even joint gadget insurance, or even the other person can be named on your car insurance. So these are small things that you might forget to think about reviewing. If you have a joint mortgage, it is likely that you have a joint life cover or joint mortgage protection policy. Remember, that policy has to remain in force for as long as the mortgage is in force. And it's not as simple as just taking one person's name off and the other person picks up the pieces. So when it comes to things like life cover, it's a little more complex, but for house insurance, car insurance, gadget insurance, those things are a little more straightforward, simply to cancel the policy and take out a new one in your own name. A couple of other things to bear in mind. These are simply points to ponder. Now, this is a picture of an Echo Dot, and this is more for situations where your circumstances are a little bit stressful. Maybe you are contemplating separation or divorce and you haven't said those words out loud yet. Be mindful of the conversations. If those conversations are sensitive and confidential, be mindful of not having those conversations in your house if there is something like an Alexa, an Echo Dot, or a Google Home. So what I suggest is, if the conversations are particularly sensitive, buy yourself an unsmartphone. I'm sure there's a technical term for them. Have the conversations on that device. And if you do need to be doing Googling and online research, pop up the road to your local library, use another terminal without logging in. So I'm not trying to make you paranoid. These are simply points to ponder and points to bear in mind. When you know your numbers upside down and inside out, backwards and forwards, it makes putting together the statement of welfare means and affidavits and financial documents so much easier. So 30 years ago, when I was trying to put together an affidavit of welfare means, I didn't even know what those words meant. I had no clue. It was me, the back of an envelope, a pencil, a ruler, and a calculator, and I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. And I have allowed myself to be quite massively in debt twice, simply because of my inability to talk about money with somebody else and my inability to understand and manage my own money and manage my relationship with money. I've been using YNAB, as in You Need a Budget, for about the last 10 years. I have tried all sorts of different types of things. I've tried envelopes, notebooks, spreadsheets, lots of different types of apps and software over the years, and this one, for me anyway, wins hands down. I think it's about 90 something US dollars. It's free for students. They have family plans and you can keep things quite separate. So you can actually have multiple budgets under the one license and there is no visibility of other people's money stuff. So it's a piece of software that I highly, highly, highly recommend. There is a 34-day free trial. Do watch the videos first, just to make sure that you do get the most from your trial. A couple of other things that I recommend doing: prioritizing paying off debt. Remember, if you have a joint liability, you are 100% responsible for 100% of that loan, even if you're only paying 50%, 20%, or whatever. So it's very important to maintain visibility of all of those things. Protecting your credit is very important. I had very poor credit for about 5 years because of the difficulties I had with a mortgage, and I was left with credit card debt from somebody else. Know your own credit record. It's free. In Ireland, we have a credit record. In England and the US, they have a credit score. So we have a slightly different system here. It's free. So if you find out your credit record now, today, and then at the end of the process, check it again and just make sure that it is still correct. Get annual reviews written into your maintenance agreements or whatever agreements, because inflation at the moment is running at about 7%. So you might find that your maintenance payment is €50 a week, which is fine. And then next year, that €50 a week doesn't go nearly as far as it was supposed to go, or your circumstances change, or your children's needs have changed, or your children have additional needs. There's a case in the papers at the moment. It's a case of a repossession. And the circumstances are complex because the female partner didn't have visibility of the enormous debt that was being accrued, and also the needs of her children are very high because one of her children is now a professional athlete, and so the costs are higher than usual because the child is having professional coaching to pursue this athletics career. So there's no hard and fast rule, like if a child is this age, then the maintenance is this much, and when they get to 12, then it goes up this much. So every circumstance is different, and every child and every families' needs are different. And particularly if a child has additional needs or complex needs, they also need to be taken into account. Some of the really basic golden rules, and these apply to anybody. These are basic golden rules of money management. Save regularly. Spend frugally or prudently, and use what I call leverage spending. So if you're going to spend money, you want to make sure that you are getting the absolute maximum in return for that transaction. So if I buy something, I use a credit card. It's cleared every single month, but my credit card gives me reward points, it gives me free insurance, it gives me cash back, and then I generally shop in shops that have loyalty cards. So for that one transaction, I get lots and lots of other extra benefits. Invest wisely, and I don't necessarily mean financially, but invest in yourself. If you are going through a separation and divorce, make time for you. Self-care is vital. That could be going for a walk, having coffee, meeting a friend, doing something for you, exclusively for you, that removes yourself from the stresses and the heightened emotions that can be going on. And I also believe in tithing. So I believe in giving generously. Now, how you tithe is your own business. You could give money to the busker on the street. You could do somebody a favor. It's really just about paying it forward. So however way you do it, it's actually makes you feel really good about yourself when you pay it forward. So it could be when you're doing your groceries, you buy a few extra tins of something and put them into a food bank. However way you do it is your own business, but it really does make you feel better about yourself, and it can have a very positive impact on your mental health. There is a huge difference between giving up and knowing when you have had enough. Giving up is quitting, defeatist, the victim mindset. Knowing when you've had enough is very empowering. And there is a difference. And I said at the beginning, when I separated from my then husband and subsequently divorced many years later, I had enough. And so it was my decision and my conscious choice to walk away. And I walked away from quite a lot. And instead of focusing on the loss, I decided to give myself a real kick in the ankles and figure out a way to make a living in more alternative fashions. So I was a single parent with a young-ish child with additional needs, and I came up with very creative ways of earning a living. So it is very possible. And a book, actually for me, that was absolutely life-changing was a book called Making a Living Without a Job by Barbara Winter. If you drop me a line, actually I will send you a recommended reading list. Some useful resources. Citizens Advice are free. They can't give you legal advice, but they can give you some direction. And most Citizens Advice bureaus will have a free legal aid section. While they won't necessarily represent you, they can at least tell you where you stand, what your rights are, and what route you might decide to pursue. So they might say, okay, for this situation, you need a tax lawyer, or for this, you need somebody who specializes in property, or for this, you need somebody who specializes in family law. So that can save you hundreds. Having those very short, quick 10-minute, 15-minute chats with free services can save you hundreds in the long run. So if you have a quick question, your solicitor will have the meter running, but that quick question you could ask Citizens Advice or Legal Aid, or in Ireland there's the Money Advice and Budgeting Service. There is an equivalent in England. I'm just not quite sure what it is called. And when I was hugely in debt, I used the Money Advice and Budgeting Service, and they helped me enormously. Well, they didn't make the problems go away. They advocated on my behalf, and they removed a lot of that emotional shame and blame. And they sat with me while I made phone call after phone call, and I wrote letter after letter explaining the circumstances that I was in, and I felt like an enormous weight had been lifted. I still carried around the poor credit for about 5 years. But with the help of the Money Advice and Budgeting Service, I got myself back on track and sorted. The Legal Aid Board, this usually just something equivalent, put that into a search engine, something will come up for you. And also do inform the tax office. Once you're separated, do let the tax office know. There are a couple of different scenarios. So you can be married, living apart, separately assessed, married, living apart, jointly assessed, separated, living together, jointly assessed. So there's lots of different scenarios. The best people to give you free advice are the tax office. All you need is your PPS number or your social security number. Give them a call and ask them, say, what scenario works best for me at this time? And you can change it. So I would generally review my taxes about once every quarter. There's a little bit of a juggling act, and that's completely free, completely free. If you'd like to get in touch with me, you can book a clarity call. I'm quite busy at the moment, so you may not find some free slots, but if you drop me a line, send me an email, askprue@prudencemoneypenny.com. I have some videos on my YouTube channel, which is prudencemoneypenny.com/YouTube. And for all of the participants of this event, I am offering a 15-minute complimentary custom hypnotherapy script. You just need to drop me a line, let me know what it is that you work on, and I will send that over to you. Questions and actions. Take action. If the only thing you take away from today is do something, whatever it is, do something. Whether it's do something for yourself, make a phone call, write a letter, send an email, do something, take action, and ask yourself powerful, powerful questions. I recommend Noah St. John's book, The Power of Affirmations, and he said, ask yourself positive, inquiring questions. Why am I so good at this? Why do I always feel so in control when it comes to my money? Why am I always so relaxed when it comes to negotiating with my ex? So when you ask yourself really empowering questions, you'll get really, really empowering answers. So please do drop me a line. Let me know what you thought. And once again, thank you to everybody at the Divorce Coaching Academy and everybody who put this together.